What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host Matt Llewellyn and our guy Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. We have our first preview show of the year here for you guys this evening. Thanks for tuning in this Friday evening. We got a great show planned for you guys. Before I kick it off to the crew, if you guys are tuning in on Twitter, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive. It is scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Join from there so we can see and interact with your comments. We're not ignoring anybody on Twitter. Elon said he's going to bring back Periscope, but he's going to allow comments back on Twitter. But until then, we can't see anything you're saying. So stop talking to a wall. Come to youtube.com/49ers Hive. Join from there and share your thoughts on the 49ers. Anything you want to say, we'll hear it. Now that I got all that out, hit like, hit subscribe. Somebody will drop off the show, hand deliver it straight to your door if you do like and subscribe. So make sure you do that. You don't want to miss that out. Mike, how you doing this evening?
I am well, man. I am looking forward to this show. Football is finally back. The Niners are playing in just a couple of hours, it feels like, right? I know it's not Saturday, but it just feels like it's right around the corner. I feel like a kid at Christmas time. I don't know the last time I've been this excited for preseason football, man, but I am going to be locked in. I'm going to be watching everything. I'm probably going to end up watching this game like 8 times to watch different position groups over and over, but I'm really excited about it, man. And everything else is great. Everything else is great. How about you guys?
Exactly. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Zach. Another week of work in the books, but it's finally here, preseason football. I'm super excited, and like Mike said, I'm probably going to watch it more than once just to get a feel for, what everybody's doing, where everybody's going, and, nothing like micromanaging the first preseason game. So let's overanalyze. Let's get those analysis caps on.
Exactly. I mean, hey, look, if you can overanalyze and break down every single detail of practice, you can definitely get into these preseason games at least 10 times more than that. Like Mike said, get these likes up, guys. Hit like, hit subscribe. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Share your thoughts. So in a little under, I should say, 48 hours, about 41 hours from now, 49ers take on the Raiders in Vegas after a few days of joint practices. It was just announced today, Kyle Shanahan via KNBR, that Trey Lance will start the game and play most of the first half. Sam Darnold will then come in the second half and play most of that. I imagine Brandon Allen will get whatever time Sam Darnold doesn't. Does this surprise either of you guys, or is this kind of what you were expecting after he had named Purdy the starter going into the preseason?
I'm a little bit surprised. Sorry, I'm just a little bit surprised in how much they seem like they're going to play. Typically, even with a backup quarterback, you would think that Trey Lance would maybe get a quarter, and then you have Sam Darnold play like a quarter and a half, and then you'd have Brandon Allen do mop-up duty. But the way that Kyle made it sound is that it's going to be kind of those two for the bulk of the game. And it's just an interesting thing. I think they're still trying to get a feel for who the backup is going to be. But with a half of football, that gives Trey Lance a real opportunity to get out there and shine for sure.
I think it's more about the battle for the backup position. if I'm being completely honest with you. I think Kyle wants to see what these guys can do. I feel like there's a little bit of a doghouse situation going on. I'll get into that later on in the show. But once Kyle, he said it at the presser. I'm not really surprised by the amount that these guys are going to be playing because they've been splitting reps so much. He said at the presser a couple of days ago, he was asked straight up, is Brock Purdy going to play in preseason? He was like, I doubt it. I don't usually play my starters. So he's like, I've changed my mind before, but it is what it is. So I'm not surprised at all by the amount that they're going to be playing either.
So let me ask you guys this, right? Because the whole discussion around the backup spot is between obviously Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has been in the league now, 4 years, 5 years? This is going to be a 6th, I believe. And my question to you guys is, if Trey Lance, with the little experience he has going in his 3rd year, is even close to the level that Sam Darnold is at, wouldn't logic indicate then that based on trajectories, this is where Sam Darnold is going to be, regardless of what he learns or what Kyle Shanahan can do, and Trey Lance is going to continue to go up as he gets more experience? Would you agree or disagree with the notion that that's more likely to be the case? Or am I just kind of my bias taking over and I'm seeing into things the way I want to be seeing them? What do you guys think? Mike?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. If they're even, then it's the guy that has the edge is the guy with the least experience, right? So if all things are equal, then that means that Lance is further along than what you would expect. However, I understand not being that way because it's also experience in the system. So Lance should go out there and have full control of this offense. He has done nothing but learn this playbook, learn the ins and outs of this offense for 3 seasons now. So, it makes sense to me that that Sam Darnold won't look as good. I don't expect him to look as good as Lance, but I also won't hold that against Darnold. He's only been in the system for a couple of months.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Matt, did you have any thoughts?
I mean, here's the thing. Lance is going out there. He's getting the start, and he's going to play a lot of the half. But just as easily, and we've seen it before from Kyle Shanahan, that if it really is a truly close battle, then that position could switch next week where Darnold gets to start and then Trey Lance plays. I think it's a little too much to read into it, although when you look at the snap counts, it does seem like Trey Lance has gotten a little bit more run out there in 11-on-11s and 7-on-7s than Sam Darnold has. I would say they're close, but again, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And I think there's something to the fact that Trey Lance does have more experience in the system. However, we know more about what Sam Darnold is in terms of a finished product because of how much experience he has starting in the league, multiple teams, and it seems like it's same old Sam every time he gets out on the field. So you could look at it both ways. I'm just going to be more sure of it if I see it next week. If it's next week, Brock Purdy's still not playing, then you know that Brock Purdy's probably going to be the starter for the season. You'll see him preseason week 3 or whatever, getting like a series or 2. If Brock doesn't play week 2 preseason and Trey Lance starts, Trey Lance should have a firm grip on the backup job. If it's Sam Darnold, then it's still a toss-up. So you kind of play this thing as by ear and take it as it goes. But I think it's a fun sign that Trey Lance is going to be the starter right off the bat. Maybe just gives me a little bit of a vibe that he might be a little more ahead than Sam Darnold at this point.
Okay. All right. So I think we're kind of all on the same page or close to it. Now, the one thing I want to talk to you guys about is, we've talked about this in previous episodes, this quarterback drama that's been taking place, not even necessarily on the field. Clearly it's taking place on the field, but the drama is taking place online. The animosity that I feel like we've been seeing amongst 49ers fans, beat reporters, I don't remember it ever being like this. And it was pretty bad Trey's rookie year. And it got a little bad last year, but I don't think I've seen it to this level. And maybe because there was a kind of common understanding that Jimmy Garoppolo is the veteran and Trey Lance wasn't going to just come in and unseat him. And now it's almost like Brock took something from Trey. I feel like it's how people are seeing this. Why do you guys think it's so vitriolic this year? If you guys even agree with me that it is more so than previous years, I don't know if you're seeing that as well, or if that's just my take on it. What do you guys think?
I think it's more passion, right? Akash tweeted something out earlier today. He said 49ers training camp coverage worse than election coverage. Each side, in quotes, just looks to bury the other side on a daily basis. Ultimately, fans miss out on quality coverage about other aspects of the team. Can't wait to get past this nonsense. And I quote tweeted that, and uh, basically saying that I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, right? I don't know the last time so many just Niner fans, forget which side they fall on, so many have been paying so much attention to preseason, not even preseason, because preseason hasn't even started for the 49ers, right? They are paying attention to every single article that comes out. And I think it's good for the business of football. I think it's good for the brand of 49ers football. Now, the people, going back and forth with their quarterbacks is something that I think people just have to be honest with themselves. We're wasting a lot of time pretending that we don't have a preference, right? I mean, look, the truth of the matter is we're all Niner fans. We just want to win games. That goes for every single body out there, right? But I was very clear that I think Lance should get the start coming into this season. Even when we were in the postseason, before Brock got hurt, I said on this show that Lance should get the start, barring Brock Purdy doing some like miraculous stuff in the Super Bowl. Right. I just didn't see how it shouldn't be Trey Lance's team going forward, because I didn't believe that Kyle believed you lose your job to injury. You can have a preference and be vocal about that preference and still want the best for the team, regardless of what decision is made by the head coaching staff.
Okay.
I think the problem comes is that's not how it's being treated, though. Everybody who has a preference is willing to die on the hill for that preference and not willing to listen to any other argument that could potentially disprove. And it's not ironic that this whole training camp stat trend seems to have started in recent years with Grant Cohn, because it's a lot of people who are from the Grant Cohn tree that continue on with the opposing narratives and the ones that are stirring up the most trouble. I mean, it's gotten to a point where your team Lance or your team Purdy, and it's just a battle straight up, and it doesn't matter if you post a stat like for one guy, a stat for another guy. People will pick sides. They'll try to tear apart your argument, or they'll support it if they're on your side. And by the way, statistics can be manipulated anyway. That's the problem. It's okay to be like, oh no, I want to see what they have in Trey Lance, right? That's cool, man. Like I'm totally down for that too. But at the end of the day, if you're arguing for your guy, no matter what, rather than voting, arguing for the guy who's the best to help the team, even if I'm like a Lance guy and people bring up the fact that Brock Purdy has done it in games and this and this and that, and if Brock Purdy ends up being the best guy, that's what it is. Like I'm not against that. I'm not opposed to that. But people will argue it like it's a life and death thing. Like the other guy is just complete trash. That guy sucks. He shouldn't be on the field. Whether it's Trey Lance, from the past, oh, he's not accurate. He's not this and that. Or Brock Purdy today throwing 4 interceptions in the joint practice. Oh, he sucks. He was never good. Purdy did all that because he played shitty defenses, or the crutch of he only had Christian McCaffrey and put up the numbers side by side with Christian McCaffrey. You give Purdy playoff props. It's like, oh, Seattle had the 25th ranked defense in the NFL. Or, somebody wants to try to put Lance over, like he was drafted in the first round. He's got the better arm. He's got all this. Then people will say, well, he hasn't played and he hasn't developed, so he's trash too. And it's like, well, he hasn't gotten an opportunity. You can argue it both ways. It's just when people dig in their heels and get shitty to each other. And that's what I've seen more than anything. And Mike, you'll call it passion. I think I think Akash is actually right. It is very reminiscent of politics, where it's us versus them mentality, when at the end of the day, it should be about the team winning. We're talking about this quarterback shit still. And what's going by the wayside is the fact that we're going into the first preseason game and there's not even a whisper of a Nick Bosa extension. And nobody cares because they're arguing about over which guy's going to be under center. It's pretty ridiculous, man. Straight up.
Can I just jump in really quick, right? And what stirs the passion? It's the reporting of or it's the excuses that are built into the reporting, right? So I saw a post today.
David Lombardi.
What? No. Well,
David
yeah,
Lombardi does it though.
Right, but that's not where I mean, I wasn't going to single anybody out for their what I think is biased reporting
Listen,
or whatever.
I figure if you're
but,
a big name and you're like a credentialed reporter, then you're big enough to be criticized for being a homer. Because if the team gives you credentials, you should be held to a higher standard. That's all I'm saying.
No. I get that part. I completely understand what you're saying. But you see the mess online from everyone who's not credentialed, right? The people who are credentialed tweet their stuff and they just go on about their business. But it's when you have the video that came out with Jimmy Ward saying, "Oh well, yeah, like practice is when you're supposed to throw the interception. So I'm not worried about Brock Purdy at all. Like he's going to be fine. You want to go out there and figure out what works and what doesn't." But then when you hear that Trey Lance or Sam Darnold are throwing the interceptions, then it's, "Oh, I told you this guy wasn't ready. He's the same old person. The accuracy isn't there for Lance, and Sam Darnold sees ghosts, and if it's not the first like it seems like there's an excuse for one guy, and then the other two don't get that same excuse, and that's when the passion starts to get stirred up, because then people are saying, "No, well, you said this when this guy did it. How come you're not saying the same exact thing when the other two do it?" And I think that's where the passion really comes in.
But I don't think that's true though. Because you look at David Lombardi, somebody who's super pro Purdy, right? And he'll sit there, and if people talk shit about his opinion, he'll come back at him with other stuff. And then you look at Grant, who's very clearly pro Trey Lance, and he'll just say that Brock Purdy sucks all day. He called him Mac Purdy today. Yeah. He called him Mac Purdy. That's a credentialed reporter.
Which,
okay,
so they're by the way,
take sides, by the way. They're definitely taking sides. The credentialed reporters are taking sides. And they're definitely shit talking when other people do it.
Yes.
Like when people call them out, when people do whatever. It's not just the Twitter guys. And again, it's the same group. It's Grant Cohn, it's David Lombardi, it's Jack Hammer, it's Jesse Naylor. It's like all the usual suspects.
Ryan Hensley.
They're all doing the same thing. And by the way, all those guys, except for David Lombardi, come off of Grant Cohn's tree. And it's all, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're talking behind the scenes, looking at all the clicks and all the shit that they're stirring. But it has worked people into a frenzy, and people that normally you get along with online or whatever will come at you like a ravenous wolf, like you're holding a stake around your neck because you said something that they don't agree with the quarterbacks. And it just gets real crazy.
Also, I just want to add in real quick that Grant Cohn, hate him or like him, I mean, the guy seems to change his opinion based off of what's trendy. And,
oh, he's like a flag in the wind, dude.
Yes, sir. Yes, exactly. So last year, I mean, people dug up tweets of him hyping up Purdy, saying this was when the 49ers knew Purdy was the one, and it's him throwing a touchdown to use check or something against the Dolphins. I think the first touchdown pass, basically hyping him up. And, before that, it was play the kid. Come on, Kyle, play the kid. Trey Lance needs to get in here and play the kid. And then last year was all Purdy. And then now this year, he's basically back to Lance and anti-Purdy, and it's like, what? Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
And that's it. I hate that I'm shooting Grant Cohn bail because he doesn't need anybody to do that for himself, right? I don't think that he's pro Purdy or per Lance or even pro Darnold.
He's anti-Kyle.
I think he's pro competition. I think that he feels this should be a competition. You saw what one guy can do in play with Brock Purdy. You spent all this equity on Trey Lance, and then you go out there and get another number 3 overall pick. Let them compete for the position and play it out. But because it doesn't even seem to be close to a quarterback competition, now it's like, oh, so you don't care that Brock Purdy just threw 4 out of 6 interceptions for the whole day, and you're just going to let the other guys who are doing this, and this just be backups no matter what. I think that's more of what his angle is. It should be a quarterback competition.
I don't
and
think
not just
so.
giving it to someone.
I don't think so. We got Jay Realist in here saying you can't put the blame on Grant for another grown man discernment. They all come from his tree, though. That's the thing. It's the same thing that Grant's doing. People point out online that Grant's dad, Lowell, used to do this shit too. Jesse Sapolo is on record saying that Lowell used to try to stir division and shit within the 80s 49ers. Listen, when you look up to your idol, you imitate your idol. It's the sincerest form of flattery. And Grant is a lot like his dad in that controversy creates cash, controversy gets clicks. And if you're in this business for what they are with let's face it. I mean, being a beat reporter for an NFL team has a limited reach, right? You're not on ESPN or on NFL Network. You're not on Good Morning Football. You're not on these shows where you have this wide-ranging reach. You got to maximize the reach. And I'm not hating on the hustle, but let's call it for what it is. It is a hustle, right? Like Zach said, I more agree with what Zach said, because if you look, even when Purdy had a good day, Grant was throwing him shade, right? If Lance was having a bad day, Grant was giving him a pass and still throwing shade at Purdy. It was a lot of deflection to fit his narrative, right? And again, I think that a lot of this is they're digging in their heels and they want to get out of it all the clicks, all the responses, all the engagement, because the more eyes that are on them, the better. And it really doesn't matter which side they're on. They know that if they talk enough shit and stir up enough division and anger amongst the fan base, which, let's be honest, is not hard to do, they're going to get all the engagement, and that's going to cause them to be bigger. You know, you can't tell me that Grant Cohn wouldn't like an opportunity to work for a network, right? You can't tell me that some of these guys don't aspire to do more. You wouldn't do it as much as they did if you didn't. But at the end of the day, you got to axe to grind. Matt Mayoko isn't doing this shit. Matt Mayoko's putting numbers up and then staying silent. And Matt Mayoko's been doing it for a long time. And I'm not saying that he's got more in with the team than all of these guys. He's like an old head or whatever, but he doesn't see the need to do it. He's got his base. I think a lot of these other guys are just trying to stir the pot because that's what they do.
And Mike, just to repeat myself, I really do think Grant is anti-Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan made Grant look dumb a couple of times in press conferences. And ever since then, Grant's like, I'm going to go on a mission to make you look stupid and basically call for your job at every chance I get and say that this is 100% on you. Because I think I saw him the other day that, you know, if he moves on from Lance and goes with Purdy, he deserves to be fired.
Yep. He said because he called Purdy the real deal, that means he's tied to him now. And if Purdy doesn't make it, then he deserves to get fired, which is a wild thing to say about a coach that's made the NFC Championship game 3 out of the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, those guys don't grow on trees. And I've always talked about that this team, I want this team's formula to be that of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots, where they're in it every single year, and not the Rams version. Dude, the Rams are going to be like a 4-win team this year. They're trash. They got their Super Bowl, but then what else? Nothing. They have one ring to show for it, and they're going to spend the next few years in purgatory because they don't have picks, they don't have money, they don't have talent. They sold it all. They sold the farm. I'd much rather have a 49ers team that's going to be in the playoffs year in, year out. I mean, even those great 80s teams, they won 4 Super Bowls in 10 years, right? That's fantastic. But then there were 6 other years where they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they were still there. They were still great to watch. You can take solace in having a good football team. You know, I don't see this among Steeler fans who are like, Mike Tomlin only won 2 rings. He needs to get fired. You know what I mean? Because they're in the mix every single year.
Right.
And that's what you want. When's the last time Bill Belichick won a title? When Tom Brady left, right? What's he done since then? Not a lot. But guess what? They're in it. Even with Mac Jones as a rookie, they were in the hunt. You know, they were close with Cam Newton when he was their starter or whatever. They didn't make it, but they were close. And I'd much rather have that. So it's funny to me that Grant can stir up this kind of anti-Kyle sentiment, or we got people online saying like, man, Kyle, and I'm not going to name his name. I want him to come on the show and I want him to defend himself. But he's like, Kyle said no to Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady and said yes to CJ Beathard and Mullins and whatever else. And it's just, he said yes to Cousins, CJ Beathard, and Nick Mullins. And it's like, dude, you're talking about, one, Mahomes wasn't Mahomes when he came out. Nobody thought Mahomes was going to be as good as he is. And you can look at the scouting reports, okay? Like, dude wasn't expected to be that good. I think Kansas City drafted him. What was his draft position? Like 14 or 16 or something like that?
14, something like that, yeah.
Right. He wasn't a top 10 pick, right? He had a lot of upside. They drafted him for upside, you know? They said no to Brady. Okay, but that's because they had Jimmy and just paid Jimmy. He wanted Cousins. Okay, well, they didn't get Cousins, but I can guarantee you right now that Cousins has been better than anything that Kyle has had. Like, Cousins is a solid-ass pro. I don't care what anybody says. He might not win great playoff games or whatever, but he's a solid starter. That's why he's been a starter. That's why nobody has replaced him in the however many years that he's been a starter. And then he was like, they said yes to Mullins and CJ Beathard. Those were like mid, and I think Mullins was undrafted, and CJ Beathard was like a 3rd-round pick. NFL teams take 3rd-round quarterbacks all the time, and very rarely do you even see them on the field ever, right? So for this, like, it's just funny to me that people will be like, I don't trust Kyle, whatever. When we've had 3 out of 4 years where we've made the NFC Championship game with quarterbacks that people would not consider great quarterbacks. It's like, how much more trust do you need in a guy? I think 49ers fans are getting a little entitled to the whole thing. So appreciate it, because it's real easy to forget about the Chip Kelly days. It's real easy to forget about the year we had with Jim Tom Sula. Real easy to forget that stuff when Kyle is serving you up dish after dish after dish, right? But we can go back to eating plates full of shit if y'all want to. Keep looking the gift horse in the mouth, and that's what you're going to get. So it's kind of funny. Like, the whole thing is just, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. We even got into here. Look, 49ers throwback. Cousins overrated. Overrated how? I just said that he was a solid starter. Is he not a solid starter? Pretty sure he's a solid. Did I say he was a top 10 quarterback? Did I say he was top 5? No. But I'm telling you that he's better than anything the 49ers have had. And I dare you to statistically prove me wrong with any metric.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure he is a top 10 quarterback. I know people don't want to admit that, but I think Cousins actually is a top 10 quarterback. You'd be hard pressed to find, 10 people better than him. Look, I just want to ask this question really quick, and then we can, move on if you guys want. I do have this whole conspiracy theory. Like I said, we'll get to it later, maybe, if you want. But I think the reporting from if you heard that a quarterback went 10 for 10 in practice with 2 touchdowns, you're going to be like, oh, wow, that's really good, right? But don't you want the context to that? Don't you want to know that 8 of those throws were at or behind the line of scrimmage? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I'm looking at it.
No, I'm with you on that.
I was gonna say, I appreciate the finer details of what exactly we're looking at. You know what I mean? So and I said that again in defense of Grant when he bashed Purdy for the really, really good day that Purdy had out there. There's 2 things that I've heard consistently about Purdy, and I think that those should not be ignored. When he gets down in red zone, he finds the end zone. When they're doing those red zone drills, he finds the end zone. You're not settling for field goals, and we saw that. I like hearing that carried over from last year into this year, right? But if you're also going to say that he's dinking and dunking the whole time, and then, the throws that are 10 yards or more is when he's throwing interceptable passes and things like that, I do want that kind of context. So I have an appreciation for it. You have to just learn to ignore the bias and take out of it what you are looking for as an individual. That's all.
No, I totally feel you on that. But even Grant stuff is lacking context, because if Purdy's going against the number 1 defense, the ones on defense, that's a top 5 defense in the NFL, right? If Lance is having a good day and it's against the 2s, does that make a difference too? It should. But their context goes both ways, right? If Darnold's out there and he goes 7-9 with 3 touchdowns, but he's playing like Ambry Thomas, who's barely hanging on to a roster spot at this point, and 3 undrafted camp bodies, then like, is that as impressive? And there's something to be said. Yeah, even behind whatever the line of scrimmage or whatever. There was some crazy stat that like 68% of passes travel less than 15 yards in the air in the NFL across the league. So it's not like everybody's bombing down the field. That is what it is. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I do think that when people just put up completion percentage, touchdowns, interceptions, it's lacking in context in all areas, and people will do that. Today's example of the most egregious today was David Lombardi, where he was like, 49ers quarterback threw a combined 6 interceptions. And it was like, dude, every other day you're breaking it down individually, bro. And it's just like, dang, man, It
is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Daddio says the Raiders aren't a top anything defense, and he struggled against them. Dude, first of all, he's coming off an injury to his throwing elbow, and I'm not trying to throw out an excuse. If you're out there playing, you should be better. But at the same time, too, we all know this. We go through this every year. The first part of preseason, Kyle is not throwing any Kyle wrinkles out there. He's not running his offense. He's running the most basic vanilla shit. Ty always goes to the defense when you're running garbage. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. And I do want to address this, by the way, before we move on. Amin Moore says, can Kyle develop quarterbacks? That's a good question. Show me a quarterback that Kyle has received either through the draft or trade and free agency that hasn't gotten injured. They literally all have. All of them. Jimmy, injured. CJ Beathard, injured. Mullins, injured. Right? Purdy, obviously injured. Lance, obviously injured. Who has he had for a steady amount of time? And the fact that he's made how many let's count it. Jimmy, CJ, Nick Mullins, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Josh Johnson. 6 quarterbacks have played for Kyle Shanahan in his tenure. And he's made 7. And he's made 3 NFC championship games with those 7. It's not about developing quarterbacks. The dude can coach a team. Plain and simple. And when you're at the granular head coaching level, it's less your job to develop your quarterback and more on your quarterback coach. And so this is year 2 of Brian Greasy. And by all accounts, the one guy that he was working with the most last year, Trey Lance, has shown a lot of improvement. Now, we didn't get to see that from Purdy, but again, how many times have we seen stunted growth from the quarterbacks because they're working back from injury?
Yeah.
Right? Trey Lance was cleared to throw back in February. He's been throwing all offseason. So, of course, he's going to come out looking fresher, looking better, or whatever. So, it is what it is, man. That's all I got to say on that.
Real quick, I just want to say, if the 49ers, all things the same, swapped in Kirk Cousins for Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, they'd win the Super Bowl this year if he plays all 17 games. I am
in a straight-up trade? Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Everything stays the same,
easy.
But the quarterback changes. I am dead certain they would win a Super Bowl. Mike, we talked about this last week when it was just Matt and I. There was all this talk about Trey Lance working with Quincy Avery and then working with Jeff Christensen, and everybody thought Kyle Shanahan was or wasn't involved. And then Kyle Shanahan said, I don't have any control over which quarterback coaches these quarterbacks work with. And then Quincy Avery comes out on Twitter saying, I never worked with Lance after he was drafted. I only worked with him before. Once he was drafted, Kyle wanted him to work with a coach that knew his playbook. He went on to go work with John Beck with the QB Collective, a coach that Kyle's familiar with. I was a little unsure of what the problem is. Like, is it a matter of Kyle's a liar? Kyle's a hypocrite? Do you have any thoughts on this? Because I know you and Matt talked about Trey Lance and his progress.
I think it's more about speaking matter-of-factly, right? Kyle can suggest who his players go and work with and what they do in the offseason, but he literally has no control. Those guys can straight up say no. You know what I mean? And to take it off of the quarterback position for a second, there were Debo not training with the rest of the wide receivers, right? Kyle was asked about that later on, and he said, I wish he was here with the team. I wish he was here going through the stuff with us, but I do trust that he's out and he's getting the work that he needs, and he'll be ready when the season gets here. So it's kind of, you got to take the context for what it is and find your truth in what he's saying. I can't force them to do it, but I do, of course I'm going to make suggestions for my franchise or who I want it to be the franchise quarterback, right? I'm going to make those kind of suggestions. So I don't think that technically he was lying. I don't have any control over that. If they take my suggestions, then great. If they don't, then, more power to them.
Okay. All right. I like that. We had a couple super chats in here. Just want to get to real quick. All-Star Everyday Kim says Lombardi fans beyond those Tyrone Bigums rocks. And All Day Everyday Kim again. Kyle is called an offensive genius, but he has no foresight on the quarterback position. I think that's tough. I think that's really tough to say. I think he made some mistakes, but I wouldn't necessarily put it all on him. I think in 2019, Jimmy Garoppolo had just had his best year ever. Tom Brady had just had arguably one of his worst years. I don't think he's that out of the realm to think that they were on different trajectories. Go ahead, Matt.
But you can't have it both ways. You can't sit here and say, Kyle can't develop quarterbacks and then look at it the same way and then be like, oh, Kyle wanted Kirk Cousins. Kyle wanted, Mac Jones instead of Trey Lance or whatever. Like, if you want to, kind of criticize him for whatever, he's working with what he's got, right? Like, if he can't develop guys, well, who's the guys that he picked? Because he didn't get Cousins and he didn't get Mac Jones. So if he can't develop quarterback, again, it goes back to that Bill Parcells quote. It's like, if you want me to cook you a meal, at least let me shop for some of the groceries. And either Kyle picked those players and can't develop quarterbacks, or Kyle didn't pick those players and it's hard to develop a guy that you didn't see a lot in anyway.
I think that Kyle can't develop them comes from the two quarterbacks that we know he absolutely picked, both of which he traded up for in the draft and handpicked, and that was Beathard and Trey Lance. And both
Are you
those
sure?
guys,
Because
yes.
if you believe reports that Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones the whole time and that Trey Lance was a scouting call.
Right. No,
but if that's true, then Kyle didn't want Trey Lance. The one guy Kyle wanted was CJ Beathard. And if you're looking for a franchise quarterback in the third round, you're drafting wrong.
Well, so Kyle straight up admitted that, I thought Mac Jones was going to be the guy. He said, then we traded up and realized we might have a couple more options. And then, the scouts brought me a couple of other players and we looked at it and then settled on Lance. So he did say, I thought it was going to be Mac Jones. That was the guy I was looking for. And then after more information was brought to him, he looked up some more guys and then he started liking what he could see in Trey Lance. And that makes sense to me also because Trey Lance is this mold of clay. He's just a lump of clay. He had 14 games total in college, right? Like those, you don't have to work as hard to take tendencies away from somebody with no tendencies. You know what I mean? So I think that he did actually value what he saw once he got up to the number 3 spot and realized that there's more of a field to get from him, right? I was big on the Justin Fields thing. We should get Justin Fields, right? But Justin Fields had a lot of experience. He played against certain types of competition and all, but he had a lot of tendencies that were hard to break. We saw that in his rookie season. We saw it in his second season. You know what I mean? And I think those are the kind of things that would drive Kyle crazy. People were saying, oh, you didn't even go out there and get Patrick Mahomes, right? Yeah, because I think those kind of quarterbacks that do more off-script stuff would drive Kyle crazy. I think Kyle wants someone that's going to operate in the system, and if a play breaks down, then you can do something extra. But the play isn't broken down if the first read isn't there. And a lot of the times you saw that with Justin Fields. You saw that with a young Patrick Mahomes in college. But there's a reason that Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a full season before he got in there. You have to get those tendencies out of those guys and then do it. And it's just going to be easier to do with a guy who only played 14 college games.
Okay, but then you can't have it both ways, though. If Kyle, you can't tie Kyle Shanahan to Mac Jones and then criticize him for how Trey Lance was developed if you tell me he settled on Trey Lance. Beside the fact that, like you said, he needed a year. Cool, he got his year. What happened in year 2? Something that didn't happen to Mahomes. He got hurt for the entire season. So is that Kyle can't develop Trey Lance? The same people that'll be like, why didn't Kyle let Quincy Avery work with Trey Lance after college because Kyle wanted his guy, are the same motherfuckers saying that he can't develop a quarterback. And it's like, wait, I'm going to let my quarterback that I'm supposed to develop go work with a guy that I don't know rather than the guy that knows my offense. So you can't have it both ways. So people saying I'm making excuses, nah, y'all are just blind to what's actually going on. I know you're not saying that, Mike. There's people in the comments that are saying it, and it's you can't have it both ways. You can't. If you sit here and tell me that, you just have an anti-Kyle bias, and it's the same shit that I see online with the quarterbacks. You're sitting out here. If you're honking for Brock Purdy, despite the fact that he threw 4 interceptions today, you're just pro Brock Purdy and anti-Trey Lance. If you're out there with Trey Lance trying to pretend like him skipping passes to the running backs in year 3 isn't still a problem, even though he's doing it, then you're part of the problem. You have an anti-Brock Purdy bias and a pro-Trey Lance bias. That's fine, but call a spade a spade. At least be intellectually honest with what you're arguing and being like, no, this is my guy, and I don't give a fuck what the other guy does. I'm rolling with my guy. Otherwise, for me, I'm about the team, and I don't give a shit if it's Brock Purdy. I don't give a shit if it's Trey Lance. I don't give a shit if Kyle can't develop himself. All right? Kyle Shanahan wins football games, and this team has made 3 NFC championships in the last 4 years. And for those of you that are too young to have made it through the mid to late 2000s and, before, Jim Harbaugh was here, and then afterwards with Jim Tom Sula and the Chip Kellys, like, y'all are wrong, man. And y'all got to look in the mirror because it's not always going to be like this. And if you prematurely want this dude out of here, you're going to get what you wish for, and it's not going to be pretty. I don't like the intellectually dishonest arguments, okay?
Right.
Be fair, all right? If somebody makes a real point, that is that's hard to argue, concede the point. It's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know about Trey Lance. I don't know about Brock Purdy. I don't know that Kyle Shanahan definitively can or can't develop quarterbacks because he hasn't had one that hasn't gotten injured or has played for long enough. Even when Jimmy G was a quarterback, the starting quarterback for however many years, he was injured every other year. And that's why they drafted somebody to replace him in the first place. So you can't tell me that 100% that he can or can't develop quarterbacks. Anything less than that is just bullshit. You're making it up.
And I think that he's getting a raw deal because to me, he's actually shown that he can develop quarterbacks. For all intents and purposes, Trey Lance looks better this year. I'm not saying that he's more accurate or anything. They're talking about his delivery, his release, the decisiveness. He is developing from what we saw when he first got in there. And Brock Purdy, I mean, he was Mr. Irrelevant, people. And look at what he did when he went in there. If that's not development, I don't know what you're looking for. So you can't say that he's not developing quarterbacks or he can't do it. If anything, I think he actually is developing these young quarterbacks, and he deserves credit for that.
And with the Brock Purdy, that's the thing that angers me the most about the Brock Purdy thing. It's like, dude was Mr. Irrelevant. He came in and did what he did last year, and y'all are just like shitting on him. It's like, what was he supposed to be? What did you expect out of him? You're only shitting on him because he surpassed your every expectation. Because I guarantee you, when Jimmy G went down against the Dolphins, we were like, oh, fuck, season's over.
That's it.
We're done. We're toast. We're not winning anything. And then the dude came in and just didn't lose. Right? So, like, it's revisionist history. It's angles. It's whatever. My only angle is whoever's best for the team is what it is. You know what I mean? So
let me get this little conspiracy theory out the way, and then we can jump into previewing the game, because I think that there's a lot of fun stuff to look forward to in this upcoming game. So
wait, hold on. What the fuck is this comment? Everybody's criticizing. Who's mad? Me? Bro, I said that 4 interceptions is a bad look, and if you're rooting for him despite your 4 interceptions, that you're wrong, and you're just a pro Purdy guy. Dang, man. Some of y'all need to like get the wax out of your fucking ears and listen to what I'm saying.
And that goes back to the context thing that we were talking about earlier. Like, it's just people hear what they want to hear, and then they hold on to that one piece. You can talk for 10 minutes, but for 30 seconds you said this, and that's what I'm going to harp on. They're going to ignore everything else. But my quick conspiracy theory. Would you guys agree that Trey Lance is in some sort of doghouse right now?
Maybe not right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was at some point.
He got benched in practice. The first practice against the Raiders, he got benched. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
Okay, so they snapped the ball. Hold on, I got my notes here. Hold on. So he got benched. First, it was a false start. No, I'm sorry. First, it was a bobbled snap. Fumble, they recover. The very next snap was a false start. Kyle pulls him off. He doesn't finish that series. And then they said that Kyle called Lance over to him. The plays continued on the field. All right. Whatever conversation they had, Kyle punches him in his pads. Like, all right. Now, it depends on how you look at that. Was Kyle pissed off? Was he whatever? But Lance goes back out there and he gets his shit together and he leads the team down the field. Boom, success, right? Last time I remember Kyle being this hard on someone, it was Brandon Ayuk. He put Brandon Ayuk in the doghouse. Brandon Ayuk responded so well to it that now he's easily wide receiver 1 on this team. Easily. It's not even like close as far as what a complete receiver is. It's Brandon Ayuk, right? I think if you look at a guy like Dante Pettis, right, in and out of Kyle's doghouse as well, or cat house, because whatever. But it's Kyle puts this kind of pressure on people that he has really high expectations for. It's only the people that he really gives a shit about that he holds their feet to the fire in every step of the process, because he expects something of you guys. I think that you can be great. You have to learn to handle the pressure. It's going to come from me. It's going to come from the fans. It's going to come from the articles written about you and the beat reporters and all of that. It's going to come from the national media. And if you can't handle it, I need to see you fold so I know not to waste my time. I think that's what's happening right now with Trey Lance. And I'm not saying that I think that, all of a sudden he's going to flip a switch and then he's just going to put him in there and take Brock out. I'm saying that he is going to see how Trey Lance responds right now. I think this is a bit of a doghouse. Listen, I know that we traded up to draft you. I know that we gave you the keys last year, and you were the guy, undoubtedly. It wasn't even a competition last year between you and anybody. When Jimmy was signed back with the team, you were not worrying about Jimmy Garoppolo. You were the guy, right? And then he got hurt, and then that was it. He was gone. Okay? So now I'm not going to just put you back in there. Now you got to go and earn it. You earned it before, earn it again. And I expect better than you skipping, like Matt said, skipping the ball off the ground when you're throwing to a freaking running back who's 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Like that you can't do that. Of course I'm going to pull you. You can't get a snap from under center. Come here. Let me talk to you for a second. Hey, get out your head. Get out here and play football. This is what you do. This is what you signed up for. Let's go do it. You went from a linebacker to a quarterback. This is what the position calls for. Get your head out your ass and focus. And then he has to answer. That's what it is. He just has to answer. He's going to get another opportunity, whether it be with the Niners or with another team. Trey Lance is going to get another opportunity, but he has to be mentally tough enough to take whatever criticisms from whoever is throwing it at him. And I really, really think that's where we are right now today. It's the criticism. Now go out here and prove everybody wrong. Go out here and show the world why we traded up to acquire you and why we abandoned Mac Jones, why we left him there and decided to take you instead. Now go out there and show them why. That's my conspiracy theory. I think this is doghouse treatment because he cares about this young man. He wants him to answer.
I mean, look, I'm not saying you're wrong because obviously I don't know, but I wouldn't put that in a doghouse though. That's my only problem with what you said. I agree with everything you said. I just don't think that's him putting him in a doghouse. I think that's him having extremely high expectations of him and literally not accepting anything less, not allowing him to give anything less. Like I was a very bright kid, right? I did very good in school. I was in the advanced programs, yada, yada, yada. GATE, when GATE was still a thing. And, whenever I would slack off, it's like the teachers would come to you on the side and it's like, yo, I know you're not trying. Like I expect more from you. Like you're slacking off. You could do a lot better. You could do this test in your sleep. And I know you got to see on it all of a sudden, like what's going on. And I kind of think that's the same from Kyle. It's like, not only did we trade all this draft you, but we specifically chose you over a handful of other talented quarterbacks that we could have gone, but we went with you because I feel like I know what you can do. And it's almost like you're just, I don't want to say disrespecting, but it's like you're being disrespectful by not giving it your all. And maybe that's how Kyle feels. You're not giving it your all right now, so then get out because I don't want anything less than 110% from you. If you're going to give me less than that, then I'd rather have Sam Darnold in there because I at least know he can be the floor of my offense. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's how I just wouldn't see it as a doghouse. But I get what you're saying. It's like the expectation's really high, and if you're not going to meet it, then I don't want you out here.
I don't know. I disagree with you on that one, Zach.
Go ahead.
Mainly because I think I'm more in Mike's camp. I think that it is a doghouse situation, but I think the doghouse is a make or break. It's the best thing for you, right? Or it could be the worst thing for you. Like he brought up Dante Pettis. Look, he was in the doghouse. Why? Because Dante Pettis obviously had physical skills. It was mental. It was all mental, right? Brandon Ayuk, all the physical talent in the world. By all accounts, in his first, year or two, and he wasn't doing the right things. He wasn't putting the mentals in. We all heard the reports about Brandon Ayuk. If he's not getting the ball, will take plays off. He won't run to block out. He won't, run his route or whatever, because if the ball's not coming to him in a Kyle offense where it's 1-2 boom go, right, when it's those quick slants or whatever, you tip off by not doing that. Trey Lance is the same way. Mike brings up the fact that when did Kyle pull him? Was it on plays that, went one way or another that's football? No, it was 2 plays that are imminently preventable. That happen all the time. It's a fumbled snap and it's a false start. And those are mental mistakes. And so Kyle pulling him out of the game and hitting him in the chest is like, hey, man, I know you got the talent to do this, but you got to get your head out of your ass and go in there and play. And how Trey Lance responds, much like Brandon Ayuk responded in a positive way, and how Dante Pettis grew a mustache and got weird, right? Dante Pettis talked about it after he came back, going into his 3rd season before they released him, was like, oh, yeah, I took it really hard. It was really hard on me, And he took it personally. And it gets to a point where you can coach a guy to the limit that you can coach him, and then you got to try something different. And so Kyle's taking him out, and he's like, hey, man, like, look, we've gone over this. This shit should not be happening. So it's a little bit of both. I don't think that Trey is slacking. I think it's a lack of, paying attention, So I just think that it's more the doghouse is a good spot to be in. And I do agree with the fact that if Kyle is pulling him into the doghouse and being like, hey, man, let's go, that's a sign that he still gives a shit. That's a sign that he wants Trey Lance to succeed. Because if he didn't care, he wouldn't say shit. You
got Brandon Ayuk. You got, in my opinion now, Trey Lance. You got Dante Pettis. You got Akello Witherspoon, right? Like, these are all guys that flashed really, really good skill sets. Get your head in the freaking game and go and shine. And if you're not going to answer this bell, you can't be on my team. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys a question, right? What do you think is more important to Kyle Shanahan? And we have some questions in the chat we're going to have to get to pretty soon. What do you think is more important to Kyle Shanahan? A guy that can go out there, Matt, I think you kind of alluded to this with Patrick Mahomes and your take on that. But a guy that can go out there and really take his game, take his offense to the next level with physical attributes, a rocket arm, maybe the ability to beat the defense over the top, not allow him to stock the box, or a guy who Kyle Shanahan knows if I tell him to put the ball in this spot, he can do it. Yeah, maybe he's not going to wow me with, a fast 40 time or necessarily the biggest arm, but I know he's going to put the ball exactly where I tell him to put it every time he goes out there. Maybe 90% of the time he'll do what I tell him to do. Whereas the guy with more upside is going to have a higher chance of making a mistake or maybe going off script. What do you think Kyle Shanahan values more? Because I think that's exactly what we're seeing here with Brock and Trey.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that Kyle is one of those people that won't trust anybody more than he trusts himself. But, one thing that's been a little different about this preseason is the fact that Trey Lance has seemingly taken care of the ball a lot better than Brock Purdy has. Now, we don't know if that's going to shake out in the real games, but it becomes a much more tough decision when you look at the physical upside that a Trey Lance would have, along with taking care of the ball better. And we've seen flash in the pans. We've seen guys, and I'm not saying that this is, X, Y, or Z. I'm not saying that this is going to happen to Brock Purdy or not, but we've seen the Robert Griffin IIIs that had one good year, got an injury, and then fell off. We've seen the guys that have flash potential, more, very famously, Kevin Cobb, who was like the backup for the Eagles, came in through like 6 touchdown passes, parlayed that into a $24 million contract or whatever it was at the time, like a huge contract with the Seahawks, and then never even played because Russell Wilson took his job. We've seen it over and over and over again. We saw it last year, right? Marcus Mariota didn't work out with the Tennessee Titans despite starting for them for 4 or 5 years, goes to the Raiders, rehabs his image because Raiders fans got tired of seeing Derek Carr out there, right? They're calling for, Marcus Mariota the entire time. Marcus Mariota parlays that into a starting gig with the Falcons, done after like 10 games, takes his ball and goes home. We've seen this over and over and over again. A quarterback that shows a certain amount of thing and it doesn't work out, right? So if we're talking about what Kyle, values the most, Kyle values wins more than anything. And it don't always have to be exactly how he does it. It has to be just the wins overall. And it's going to be a hard thing to just stick with somebody. And that's why I'm saying when people are like, all these fools like Mike Silver are out here talking about they could release Trey Lance. Not only is the contract thing ridiculous, but name me the last time the 49ers went a season. 2019 is maybe the only one they win a season with their quarterback starting the entirety of the season. So one of these quarterbacks, whoever is the starting the season isn't necessarily going to play all the games. And I guarantee you we're going to see the backup. So Trey Lance isn't going anywhere. And it's just as likely that Brock Purdy, even if he does start the season, if he struggles in game 1 and 2 and maybe into 3, you don't think that we would see, 49ers are 0-2, maybe, 1-1 and struggling in game 3. You don't think that they might be a switch to Trey Lance? I don't know, man. You can't value me on that. You can't buy me on that.
Yeah. I think to answer the question, I think Kyle wants to know that someone can operate his system, someone can function in his system, and it's kind of like he's kind of been scarred, right? He doesn't even have enough experience with a quarterback long enough to say, okay, this guy can overcome my system. Right now, all Kyle knows is my system works. Who am I to sit here and say, okay, well, this guy can improvise in my system now? No, because you might not be here. We start changing the way that we do things, and then you get hurt 7 weeks in, I'm screwed. So I have to implement and install my system. You have to show me you can work well in my system. And like I said, if a play breaks down, you keep your eyes open, right? Kyle sends people deep. He sends a receiver deep on one side of the field, hoping that he takes two people with him, the corner and then the safety. And that opens things up across the middle for other people. That's great, right? But what if that safety doesn't go and the corner falls? We saw that happen with Trey Lance when he hit Debo down the right sideline. I think it was his what game was that? Was that Arizona? It might have been like the first time he played.
Seattle.
But he hit Debo was like just wide open. The play wasn't designed to go to Debo, but it was a busted coverage, and he took advantage of it. That's what Kyle wants to see. Operating the means of the system, but if something breaks down, you're not just on autopilot all the time. Like, you can be on autopilot 80% of the time, but when that 20 presents itself, you got to be able to take advantage of it. And I think that's what he wants.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot. Let's get into some questions here. We got one from Brandon, our guy. Let me ask you this. Is Brock rehabbing, taking days off, and still running with him in the season the same as letting Trey start and develop too? Someone brought that up on Twitter Spaces.
No.
I don't think so.
No. Brock has how many Brock was a 4-year starter in college. Brock taking days off to rehab is resting his arm and saving it for when the games count. Trey Lance needs every snap that he can get to try and develop.
I don't think that's what he's asking.
What is he asking then?
I think he's saying,
because like my comprehension of English is leading to, like, you know what I'm saying?
No, it's cool. It's cool. I think what he's saying is, like, is it positive for both of them, right? So on the rehab days, I think I saw one time. I'm not even 100% sure. I think I saw one time Sam Darnold got the start in practice on the day that Brock Purdy wasn't in there. I think one time. Otherwise, it's been Trey with the ones anytime Brock Purdy is on a rest day. And so I think he's saying, like, can it be a little bit of both? You're still letting him develop.
Brandon, can you clarify? Because the way that I see this, the phrase that's throwing me off is, and still running with him in the season. That's the part that's throwing me off.
We'll wait for further clarification.
Because the only way that Lance is going to get better is with more reps, specifically with the ones, right? So on that day of rest, you can't split those reps evenly with him and Sam Darnold. So you go out here, you take advantage of the reps that we are going to give you while my starter Purdy isn't in here. So you got to go out there and let him.
But that still wouldn't be the same, though.
Why not?
That still wouldn't be the same. Because what is that? What is? Hold on. Where? Put the comment back up. Is Brock rehabbing, taking days off, and still running with him in the season the same as letting Trey start and develop too? No, that's not the same thing. Brock is Hold on. Brock is rehabbing and taking days off. They're still starting him in the season. Okay?
Right.
End of sentence. Second sentence. Trey Lance is starting and developing too. Is that the same thing? No, it's not.
In practice.
No. He didn't. And nowhere in here does it say in practice.
Well, Trey Lance isn't starting, so he's got.
He was starting last year
in season.
Season.
We have some further clarification. Basically, having Brock playing as quarterback 1, but he's not 100%. Having days off is the same thing as Trey starting, developing, and knowing Trey looks way better this offseason.
I don't know what the fuck that means.
I'm more confused now than ever. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep. That did not clarify shit.
Boo this man!
It's just another example of Twitter Spaces being a cesspool of the most stupid fucking ideas I've ever heard. No offense, Brandon. We love you.
All right. We got another question from Justin. Lance has the first half. Will Kyle go 100% bland with this plan, or will he let Lance cook to his strengths? I got a follow-up question to this as well, but I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts.
Sure.
I think it's going to be bland. They just practice against them. They usually in the joint practices, we get in preseason you typically get a vanilla game plan, but after the joint practices, you don't see much of anything. Everything is handoffs up the middle, couple of short passes. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of anything fancy or anything like that. So, and by the way, what exactly are Trey Lance's strengths right now? Anyway, we have no idea what that looks like. So I can't say that I expect to see play calling to Trey Lance's strengths. I don't know if we're going to see that.
But here's the thing. We've seen in preseason before. I mean, we all remember that famous Papa call, right? Trey area, because they did a play action pass where he threw to Trent Sherfield, who got behind the defense and went for a touchdown. That wasn't what we saw in year 2 when Trey Lance started week 1 and then into week 2 against the Seattle Seahawks when he broke his leg. So Kyle playing, I agree with Mike. We don't know what his strengths are, but also I don't think they're going to run Trey Lance in the preseason. They'll probably play a pretty vanilla offense, a lot of handoffs, a lot of play action pass, which looks closer to Kyle Shanahan, ironically enough, looks closer to Kyle Shanahan's offense than what he was doing with Trey last year before Brock Purdy came in. So 805 is touching on something that I absolutely wanted to touch on, by the way.
He says, what did you think of Jordan Love? I see similarities and differences between Trey and Jordan. Both have amazing upside, athletic, and came from small schools and sat a couple of years. Just saying.
Yeah. Listen, I think that one of the things that people got to remember is that Jordan Love this year is going to be a very big canary in the coal mine for what Trey Lance could or could not be. And I know it's not exactly the same situation, but the fact of the matter is that after year 1, into year 2, even into year 3, people were saying that Jordan Love was absolute dog shit in Green Bay. Wasn't accurate. Didn't look like he was ready. Was never going to be the guy. Oh my God, they made a mistake. Why did they draft him? This and that. And now Green Bay looks pretty high on what Jordan Love can do. And it kind of comes out to a similar situation. Now, I will say this. Whoever said Jordan Love came from a small school, he didn't come from a small school. So
he come from UCLA?
Nevada State, I believe. But it's that's not a small school. North Dakota State is a small school. But I think it's because of the lack of experience, because of the fact that people were writing him off from the beginning, and the fact that he came from behind and was actually given time behind the scenes to develop and now is ready to take over. I think that bodes well for Trey Lance going forward. If Jordan Love plays well. Now, if Jordan Love comes out and shits the bed, then I think that, we can take that as like a little bit of a canary in the coal mine a little bit. Not one-to-one comparison, but for all the people writing off Trey Lance, it's like, be careful. Like, it's too early. Again, we don't know. Same thing with Brock Purdy. We don't know. I don't think 7 games is enough of a sample size. We just don't know.
So my follow-up question to that is, do you guys, we're getting into conspiracies on this podcast. There's some guys out there like Rob Stats who think that
I really wish, by the way, I really wish he would change his Twitter avatar. It makes him look so stupid. Yeah. Can't stand it.
That's what I see every time I see him.
Can't stand it. I don't know why I shouldn't care, but it makes me irrationally angry.
So he's tweeting out that after hearing Trey Lance is going to play the majority of the first half, it's great to hear, but unfortunately, this is his tweet. Something along the lines of paraphrasing is, unfortunately, I think it's because they're trying to showcase him to bait other teams to trading for him. I can't imagine this happens. Maybe I'll eat my words in a couple of weeks, but do you guys think that that's likely or the case that the 49ers are going to let Trey Lance play a lot of the preseason in hopes that somebody wows them with an offer that they can go ahead and say, okay, please take him off our hands. Brock, we're 100% behind you. Do you guys think that that's a conspiracy that could happen or will happen?
Could it happen? Absolutely. Will it happen? I sure hope not. I just don't have enough faith in this team going into a season with just 2 quarterbacks. And I have even less faith in Allen as a quarterback. So I hope it doesn't happen, but we've heard this entire coaching staff say literally anybody can be traded. They go as far as saying if they got the right offer from me, this is John Lynch and Kyle, if they got the right offer from me, I'm sure that they would move me without hesitating. So, it's I really feel that they say that tongue in cheek, but I do believe that. I think that there's probably one or two guys who are untouchable on this entire roster, and neither one of them are Trey Lance. So
You guys heard it here first. Mike does not believe in Josh Allen. He is not a fan of Josh Allen. You heard it here first. I'm fucking with you.
Right.
Matt, you have any thoughts?
I just want to know what this guy's talking about. Please quantify this comment. I don't know how I've been negative. I've been like fucking down the middle.
Well, maybe he's seen you walking before. Do you have a big ass?
Maybe.
Do you have a small ass? It's negative. It goes in.
Yeah. No, I got a small ass for sure. It definitely it's negative space.
Yeah, I have no ass at all. So I would have a negative ass also. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
for sure. No, I don't think I'm a negative person, but I'd love to quantify that. It's like the other guy who was like, Mike, do your own show. I don't agree with any of these two fools or whatever, and then didn't quantify that in any way, shape, or form. It's like, thanks for contributing, but if you want a show where people just blow you all day, that's not this one, because I'm not going to agree with everybody, and I don't give a shit to agree with everybody. But no, I don't. That's such a hard thing, right? Because if Trey Lance goes out there and let's say we believe the conspiracy, right? And they want to showcase Trey Lance so that they can trade him. What if he goes out there and plays absolutely terribly? Then you just tank his value. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Flip side is he looks fucking phenomenal.
And then you don't want to trade him at all, right?
So it's just the odds aren't in favor of a trade. I'm sorry. They're just
no, it's not. Besides the money, besides the fact that again Trey Lance is still an unknown, and you want to see what you got with him, you're not going to trade Trey Lance. And Mike, I agree with you. You don't go into the season with two quarterbacks, and we definitely don't go in there with Brandon Allen. And I think that they're telling you that it's not going to be Brandon Allen based off of the fact that he's been getting 0 reps in practice. Like he started the offseason, right? Like when they first started training camp, he was getting like 5, 6, and everybody's like, why are you giving Brandon Allen reps over like Trey Lance or whatever? And now he's getting none. And people are like, well, they're trying to get him out there so they can trade him. They want Trey Lance out there so they can trade him because they love this Allen guy so much. It's like Brandon Allen is not making this team, guys. Sorry. The whole point of them being able to carry the third emergency quarterback on game day, there are places we carried like 11 defensive linemen last year. You telling me we can't go to 10 and then carry 3 quarterbacks on the 53? Like we definitely can do that.
Javon Kinlaw can sit out. He already was.
Quarterbacks. What's that?
So Javon Kinlaw can sit out. He already was sitting out. So nothing's going to change that.
You know what though? Word on the street is that Javon Kinlaw has been healthy and that he's been tearing shit up. And I root for Javon Kinlaw. I hope. Well, hey, you cannot be fooled. I'm not gonna, put my hopes on it. I wouldn't bet my life on it. But at the same time, I'm rooting for Javon Kinlaw to do something with his career because I was excited for him coming out. So I just think that you can carry those 3 quarterbacks, that you can carry Lance, Darnold, and Purdy, right? Because you don't. Again, when have we ever seen a situation where a team loses an NFC Championship game because they have to go back to their starter who got injured and can't throw the ball because then their backup got injured? After that was their third starter who got it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a preposterously bad quarterback season for the 49ers last year in terms of injuries. They're not going to get bit by that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. They're not going to get bit by that again. I think they carry all 3 into the season, to be honest. Yeah. By the way,
go ahead.
Still waiting for Will to support that I'm negative ass thing. Although he did say, let's all get BBLs. I'm down. I'm down for the diaper, but I'll get the inflatable donut ring to sit on.
Last question here.
There's somebody at work, by the way, that I work with that has that, and it's the most fucking ridiculous thing I've ever seen in person.
Yeah. Last question on quarterbacks, then we'll talk about some other things, talk about the game. Is there any way that what Trey Lance does over the next 3 preseason games can catapult him above Brock Purdy. The reports coming out, Brock Purdy's throwing a lot of interceptions in practice. That's concerning. Trey Lance may not necessarily get the easy ones down, but he's not putting the ball in harm's way. If you believe the reports coming out of practice, I'm not physically there. But do you think that what Trey Lance does over the next 3 preseason games has that significant meaning to where Kyle Shanahan could sit going into week 1 and say, like, look, he absolutely killed it in preseason. I do think that I can legitimately name him as a starter come week 1. Or do you think that regardless of what he does, he's going to be the backup? The highest he can be going into week 1 is the backup to Brock Purdy. What do you guys think?
You're playing with my emotions here. You really, really are. I like the Trey Lance guy in me. Like I told you guys, I'm Team Lance. Like I want to see Lance with our starters. I think we deserve to see what that looks like, right? So that portion of me sincerely feels like, yeah, there's a shot. He has to just go out there and like go crazy. Brock will play in the 3rd preseason game and not look as good as Lance, and so Kyle would be like, you know what? Never mind. We can go with Trey. But I think if everything were to go based off of what I've heard this offseason, based off of what we've read and seen this offseason, and when I say heard, I mean from Kyle only, not from articles. And then the articles and the videos and all that you've seen, I think that if Lance does go out there and light it up and Purdy's still struggling, I think Purdy still gets to start, but he's got a very, very short leash. I think that is the best case scenario for Trey Lance. Purdy still gets to start, but he's got a short leash because Lance just looked so convincingly good during these preseason games. That's it. And I think we're doing another joint practice with another team, right?
The Broncos.
Oh, it's just one? No? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought it was 2.
I thought we touched on this 2 shows ago that it was just the Raiders.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did. Yeah. You're right. So, I mean, if he goes out there and really, really lights it up in preseason, I still think best case scenario is like he is the backup, but Purdy, you got to show me why we went with you over him.
Okay.
I'm kind of in on that train. I think that if Lance balls out in all 3 preseason games and Purdy in what I think is the inevitable one that he's going to get in, he's going to get in one, and Purdy looks just like shit. By some accounts, it looks like a lot of what Purdy's having in terms of the problem is zip on the ball. It's not decision making. It's that he's not hitting tight window throws. If he's not making it back from this elbow thing, and the team is kind of clear that he's not making some of the throws he made last year, which comes with more tape, not just at practice against your own guys, because that kind of stuff happens all the time. But if he's going into the 3rd preseason game and whatever his 2 series are, he doesn't look good. And then in game 1, he doesn't look good. I agree with Mike that if Lance is balling out in the preseason, that leash for Purdy gets a lot shorter, and it's going to be a lot quicker for them to make them the move. Because if you're presented with a guy who's not taking care of the ball and can't get the ball where you want to, and a guy who does have some accuracy issues, but has been trying to take care of the ball more this season and has all the physical gifts and physical advantages that Trey Lance has over Brock Purdy, it's really, really hard. And I think he's, again, threading the needle. It's the same reason why Jimmy G was so hard to replace, right? Because when you take a team through the regular season and then you take them into the playoffs and you win multiple playoff games with that quarterback, that engenders a certain amount of respect and cachet within the locker room that's going to be hard to overcome without actual real world gameplay to kind of overcome that. You got to wait for Brock Purdy to fumble the ball before Trey Lance is going to be able to snatch it up. Where Trey can close the gap is playing in these preseason games and doing exactly what he's been doing by all accounts, which is steadily improving. It makes that transition easier to go to once Kyle decides to do that. But it's going to be hard. I don't think there's a way, unless Purdy is injured, that Lance is going to be able to catch him by week 1. But again, there is ways that he can close that gap to where Purdy is not going to get 6 games to fuck it up. He'll get like 2.
I think also, I hate to say it, but historically, Kyle Shanahan has had slow starts with his teams, even the really good ones, even last year, even the year before that. They start a couple of games under 500, and then they level out and go on this streak. That's what we've seen the last couple of years. So if the 49ers are sitting at, 2-4 come week 6, and maybe the quarterback play is not phenomenal, is Kyle Shanahan going to be forced to make that change? I agree with Matt saying maybe Purdy's going to have a much shorter leash, knowing Trey's on the sideline.
There's only one thing that I'll push back on you on that. The 2019 team started 8-0.
That's the one season they didn't start slow.
Right. And they've either missed the playoffs or like the two that they did make the NFC Championship game, they did start a little slow.
Yeah.
But he does have an 8-0. I think they started like 11-2 or 12-2 or something, like 11-2 or whatever to that season. So he does. It just depends. I think that, again, health plays a huge factor, and I think that's a big role in all of this.
I think
it was 3-5 the one year, and then it was 3-4 last year. And then we flipped the switch.
Absolutely unacceptable. From the talent this team has, there's no way you're telling me they should lose 5 out of 8 games and 4 out of 7 games. That's all I'm saying. The talent this team has. What the hell are you doing, Kyle? What is it about the first half of the year that you suck?
It's health, though, right? It's always health with this team. That's the one thing, is that Debo's not healthy, or for last season, George Kittle misses the first 3 games of the season. You know what I mean? So Trey Lance breaks his leg in the second game.
In that direction again, by the way,
he's hurt. Right, he's got a lat injury, or I'm sorry, adductor injury.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking to somebody else, but adductor injury, which is essentially a groin pull. I mean, it is what it is, man. You got people in the defense that are injured, so we need that. Again, NFL, half of it is luck, man. Who's injured, who's not. The Bengals are catching a break. It looked like Joe Burrow was going to be out multiple weeks of the regular season, but they showed him jogging today. So he'll probably be back in the opener.
He was throwing 50-yard passes on the sideline.
Right.
So
right, with no calf sleeve on or anything like that. It seems to me, because somebody pointed it out too, that they'd never seen. I think it was Pro Football Doc. He's like, I've never seen Joe Burrow wear that calf sleeve before. The one where he actually strained the calf on the play. He was wearing that sleeve. That might have been something that he had tweaked in the offseason and then just made worse. So now with the rest and proper rehab or whatever, he can make it back. But it's all about luck, because when I first saw it, and I'm sure a lot of you guys first saw it, we were like, oh shit, he tore his Achilles. He's out for the season. The Bengals are sunk. And that's all it takes to have a really shitty season, is for your top guy to go down or whatever. So a lot of it's going to be luck on the 49ers. And, let's get a lot of these, knick-knack injuries out of the way right off the bat, right? Elijah Mitchell already hurt again. I think he was the guy with the lat. I don't know. He had something going on. But it's just these little ticky-tack injuries with all these guys that kind of add up. So if we can stay healthy, that's where the fast start will come in. It's when you got key guys that miss multiple weeks that you're in trouble.
So, by the way, how much of Joe Burrow's absence is contract related? I don't know. Just my mind goes there. He saw Justin Herbert get that contract. Rumor was he was waiting for that to get his. He hasn't gotten it yet.
Nah, bro. He didn't pull up lame to get a contract. He knows.
Well, I'm not saying he pulled up lame because of that, but how much is he exaggerating? Because maybe he's saying, hey, if I had the contract, I could have been back in 4 weeks.
Damn, dude. Hey, Zach, I can't see it, but that tinfoil hat is really fucking big today, bro.
I'm not the only one who thinks it.
Yeah, but okay. But you should be the last person to believe that as a Warriors fan, after watching Kevin Durant have a calf strain and then pop his fucking Achilles the second game that he was back.
He rushed back,
the first game. Excuse me, the first game. Yeah, how many weeks was he out, Zach? How many weeks was he out?
That was years ago.
He was out like 2.5 months. Well, let's keep that under wraps.
I plead the
Who's
fifth.
Gonna get paid?
I plead the fifth.
Uh-huh.
I plead the fifth. I drink my drink and I smile. All right.
All right, Grant.
All I'm saying is the rumor was Herbert and Burrow were waiting to see who's going to get the contract first to base their contract off of the next. So it just happened that Burrow got hurt right after that happened, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, they're both obviously Burrow's going to get paid. It's shit. If they don't pay Burrow, I would get rid of just about everybody on this team for Burrow.
It's such a silly thing to do to wait for the other guy to get paid, because you can actually have your team put escalators in. If another player comes out and does better than me as far as pay goes, I get bumped another 100,000 to beat them. Like they'll exist.
That's called favored nations. That exists in contracts.
Yeah. Okay, so
Also, the next quarterback that signs is going to make more than you anyway, so who gives a shit?
It's only for literally that small period of time. You're the highest paid at your position. I don't get why it matters so much. All right. The last thing, or not the last thing, let's preview this game. What are you guys looking forward to? And then let's get into some chat pack questions. What are you guys actually looking forward to seeing Sunday versus the Raiders? If you had like one or two things that are at the top of your list, I am looking to keep an eye on this specific thing. That thing is blank. Mike, since you got the big screen, you can go first.
Yeah. I am really, really excited to watch our right tackle position, specifically because I know Trent Williams is not going to play. So the line is already going to be shuffled up. So I am going to be watching the right tackle because I believe the person that is playing right tackle is actually going to be the backup right tackle. I think the person playing left tackle is going to be the actual right tackle for the season. So I want to see how they perform. I'll be watching both of them and kind of basing it off of, basing my judgments off of that. I think that, I would say losing Mike McGlinchey is a big deal, but he's also hurt for a couple of weeks as well. Heal up, big fella, and condolences to you and your family, by the way. But I think that it's going to be bigger shoes to fill than what Niner fans initially thought. So I want to see what these tackles do in this game, specifically with the first ones that are up.
Okay, I like that. Matt, what do you keep an eye on Sunday?
I want to see growth from the year 2 guys. I want to see growth from the Ty Davis Price. I want to see the growth from the Danny Gray. I want to see the growth from those type of guys. For a rookie, I want to see what Jair Brown is going to bring to the table and whether or not, Tashawn Gibson can be somebody that will be moved after this year for a more of a youth movement, right? I want to see how those second-year guys really fit in. Because we all know that essentially in this Kyle Shanahan offense, most people, and defense for that matter, most people get a red shirt. I know that Drake Jackson is kind of nursing an injury, so he might not play as much. But rookie years for a lot of these guys end up being, I can't think of the last time a rookie got super meaningful run besides maybe Deebo Samuel at that point. But, in many situations, a lot of these rookies, for whatever reason, they don't know how to be pros. Kyle Shanahan's scheme is hard. They just don't get a lot of runs. So Danny Gray, Ty Davis Price, some of these guys, how they grow from year 1 to year 2, particularly Ty Davis Price with all of the injuries to Elijah Mitchell, that makes it very, very important to kind of see where we go from here. So those are really what I'm looking at for sure.
A year 2 guy that I'm going to be watching, just to piggyback on what Matt just said, is Jason Poe, our center / guard guy. I liked him coming out. And when we got him, I was really excited. Him and Donovan West were the 2 centers.
Same, and then Donovan West just disappeared.
Well, not only did he disappear, he went to that other league, and I watched him, and he couldn't even get starts in that league. So I was like, wow, maybe we dodged a bullet by not drafting him. You know what I mean? But I had a lot of hope. Donovan West was actually my favorite, but I did like Poe also. So I want to see him as well. Another second-year guy to keep an eye out for. At center.
I like that. Look, obviously we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but Ray broke his wrist. He's going to be out roughly 8 weeks. Who's going to step up in the returner spot? And also Danny Gray. Keeping an eye on Danny Gray. There's reports coming out that he basically feels like he wants to break the notion that he's either big play or nothing type receiver, and he wants to prove that he can run a full route tree. I would love to see Danny Gray develop and come up and be able to not just have the deep bomb go when Trey Lance is in there, because otherwise, for some reason, nobody can throw the ball to him. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Danny Gray. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on who's returning punts, who's returning kicks. Unfortunately, now that Ray is going to be gone for 2 months. Let's see. Matt, is there anything else you're keeping an eye on?
No, I agree with you. Danny Gray is an important one. That was part of my year 2 guy. And I do think that with the injury to Ray McLeod, Danny Gray could actually slot in to fill those duties. So that'll be interesting. I do think I want to see what the defensive line is going to look like as well, with new pieces, with rookies, with people like, with the absence of Drake Jackson, we're going to be able to see what the depth looks like. I'm also interested to see what some of the other less touted rookies do. People, the battle between Cameron Latu and Braden Willis. What's that look like? What's the converted linebacker from TCU?
Watson?
Yeah.
Leroy Watson.
Yep. A lot of these rookies that we drafted later, we're going to see a lot of them. You know what I mean? Just because these were later round guys, a lot of our starters aren't going to play. We're going to see who makes the team. There's usually a surprise. There's usually a guy where you're just like, oh shit, that guy looks good. And the 49ers, one thing they do spectacularly well is take people that don't traditionally play linebacker and make them fantastic linebackers. So that's going to be something to watch. Fred Warner, I believe, didn't he play safety in college for a while before he converted to linebacker?
I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, there's these guys, and we've lost Azeez Al-Shire. We still have Dimitri Flanagan-Fowles. We still have Dre Greenlaw. But you need that depth linebacker, right? So which one of those guys is going to step up? Again, we still need tight end too. Cameron Latu was drafted higher, but Braden Willis, by all accounts, looks better. So how's that going to play out?
Wait,
it's going to be interesting.
I want to put some context to that. Latu runs the better routes. Latu is a more physical blocker, but his issue is dropping passes.
There's
a really
well. I also heard that he's slower than molasses going uphill on a hot day too. So
really,
there's that. Yeah, I've heard Cameron Latu is slow.
And another position to keep an eye on. I was watching some preseason games from last year, and I got to figure out why Samuel Womack did not get that nickel position. So between him and Oliver, that battle is going to be a lot of fun to watch throughout preseason. I don't know.
I haven't even seen Oliver. That's a great call right there.
Right. Like they brought him in. He's the one guy that Wilkes was able to bring in from Carolina, and I have heard nothing about him. And so if there's been a hit with the reporting from camp this year, it's the oversaturation of quarterback talk and not some of these other positions that we were looking to get filled. So that nickel position is going to be a huge one for the 49ers. I was watching Womack, and he was always in the right place. He made plays in preseason.
Had a couple interceptions.
Yeah, and then he actually, I believe, I could be wrong. I think he got the start at nickel for like the first 2 games, and then he was just gone. Like he was just nowhere to be seen for the rest of the year. I want to see if he learned. So another second-year player that Matt was talking about, I'm going to be watching that competition a lot, not just this game, but throughout preseason.
Yeah. Is he wearing number 0 now, Womack? I just Googled him. He shows a 0 on Yahoo. I don't know if that's correct.
I mean, this is the first year that they can wear a 0.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was one of the resolutions. I think the Eagles put that forward. But they can wear 0 now. Yeah, I'm with you, Mike, on that. The other one, it's like now we know for a fact, and not just due to an injury, that Diamador Lenore is going to be the starting cornerback on opposite of Charvarius Ward, who, by the way, also per reports, laid the wood to Devontae Adams in that joint practice today. So good for you doing that. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. The corner position is one that's super interesting. What's that?
That was Lenore that did that?
No, Ward. I was saying he's starting opposite of Ward, and then I said that he laid the wood to Devontae Adams today. But no, Diamador Lenore, that's going to be an interesting one. The cornerback position is going to look a lot different for the 49ers. Again, like Mike said, Womack, by all accounts, looked good in camp last year, got the first 2 starts, and then kind of disappeared. And now we go out and sign a guy that projects to be a really good corner, Isaiah Oliver, who's had injury issues with the Atlanta Falcons, who's coming over here to try to resurrect his career, like somebody else that we had as a stalwart at the nickel corner for many years.
K'Wan Williams.
Yep, K'Wan Williams from when he had the ankle injuries with the Cleveland Browns was kind of just a castaway. So that's it. It's a very mirrored situation. We have, maybe just the Hufanga position at the safety kind of shorn up because, Jimmy Ward gone. Obviously, our stalwarts are gone. No more Emmanuel Mosley, guys that have been here for a long time. This was a really big turnover year for the defense. And we get to see what they look like under a new defensive coordinator yet again with Steve Wilkes. What is this team going to look like? Those are the things that are interesting. And I do agree with you, Mike. And it's something that's kind of, again, has frustrated me about so much conversation about the quarterbacks, besides the tribalism, besides everything else. It's like what I pointed out. We don't hear shit about the Nick Bosa extension. We don't hear shit about all these position battles. We don't hear shit about these rookies. We don't hear shit about the fact that apparently Jake Moody has like a fucking mega leg. That dude, they were saying he's kicking 60-yard field goals in practice that would be good from 66. Like, apparently he has a rocket leg, which is like, I mean, I knew that because I'm a Michigan fan and I watched Jake Moody play in college. But the fact that it looks like it's translating to the NFL is something that's heartening coming off of Robbie Gould. We don't hear none of that because we're so stuck on the quarterbacks and everybody's so at each other's throats about it. It pisses me off. And it's just, now that we get to the actual games and we're not relying on other people to tell us what they see at training camp, now we get to watch with our own eyes. Now we get to go, if you have NFL Plus, which I do, you get to watch the replays with all 22 coaches film. You get to watch condensed or full replays, whatever you want. And I'm not trying to shill. I'm just saying that it becomes easier to do evaluations when you can watch the coaches film and see and break down what each individual position is doing. And I'm glad we get to do that rather than just get kind of try to go through what's given to us on Twitter, or X, I guess, as it's now called.
I feel like
welcome back, Melissa.
Should have been.
Welcome back, Melissa.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in. I feel like that should have been played a little earlier in the show, so I'm playing it as an accumulation of all of Matt's rants from tonight's show. We got one for Mike that I probably should have gone out earlier, but it was taking forever to download. Finally uploaded. We're going, yeah. Roberto says that was a mild rant. Take it in consideration as all of the rants combined for tonight's show. We have a mic drop graphic as well. We have a Zach attack, but I don't get that angry. What's up, Mike?
Did you say a position that you were looking forward to?
I did. So I spoke about Danny Gray and I spoke
did.
about the punt returner, kick returner.
Oh yeah. Ronnie Bell's in that loop too. So
who's been making
really
some
exciting.
fantastic catches by all reports. If he could actually get something going, I'm really excited.
Another Michigan guy that I know about that was hampered by injury.
Yeah,
but that's actually pretty good.
I want to point out one more. Do not be surprised if the 49ers lead all teams in preseason in rushing yards. From what I'm hearing about these backups, they all look really, really good. They all look good. Ty Davis-Price, it seems that he has reinvented himself. Jordan Mason, they're talking like he looks like he deserves to be the number 2 back behind Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he's added a component of being a pass catcher now and all. So this is going to be a really, really fun preseason to watch.
Listen, you know what? Listen, I'm not opposed. If these running backs look really good, I'm not opposed to, as unfortunate as it would be, maybe trying to either get something or just moving on from Elijah Mitchell, because Elijah Mitchell has been hurt every season that he's been in the NFL, and he's hurt again. Last year, he tore both of his meniscuses. Like, at some point or another, you've got the Jason Verrett syndrome. You could have all the talent in the world, but if you can't stay on the field, we talk about it. Zach, what's the best ability?
Availability.
Exactly. And if you got 2 beasts and you got Ty Davis-Price and you got Jordan Mason bringing it up, then Elijah Mitchell becomes redundant, And by the way, I think that at least running the ball, Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey are very similar. Where Christian McCaffrey separates himself is with the passing game. I don't think Elijah Mitchell's a pass catcher, but they're both like one-cut guys. Christian McCaffrey, and neither Christian McCaffrey nor Elijah Mitchell have huge breakaway speed. I've seen Christian McCaffrey get caught. He got caught last year. You know what I mean? So and then you get Jordan Mason and Ty Davis-Price, who are more power guys, and you kind of mix that in. But I think that if Elijah Mitchell can't stay healthy, then he becomes expendable.
I think Elijah Mitchell is a better runner with the ball than Christian McCaffrey is, believe it or not. And I know that sounds like, Mike, you're crazy. Like,
I meant style, not necessarily ability. I think they're stylistically, they're very similar. But I feel you on that. As a pure runner, I could see that there's an argument to be made for that because, again, Elijah Mitchell with his yards per carry was like really good. But go ahead, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry about that.
No. That's it. I'm good.
Okay. Other than the offensive line, is there anything you guys are keeping a close eye on? I know we discussed a good amount, going on an hour and a half. Anything else you guys want to talk about for Sunday, or do you want to get into chat pack time?
I want to see Kyle challenge something. He doesn't do it a lot during the regular season. And the 2 preseason games that I watched, he challenged plays in both of those games. So I was like, oh, I forgot that Kyle even has that red flag. So I would like to see him challenge some stuff, do it with a little bit more confidence. And even if he knows he's going to fail it, I want to see strategic ones where like you're throwing it out there to give your guys an added rest instead of calling just a normal timeout. They're gonna dock you the timeout when you lose it anyway, but it just takes so much longer for them to review it than those 30 seconds. Be strategic with the way you use those challenge flags. I know it sounds like, Mike, that's stupid, but it can be really, really important in the big game.
Okay. I agree with that. Zach, before we go to chat, we should do it's harder to do in preseason, I know, but we should do our offensive, defensive MVPs and our score predictions.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's do it. I'll start with mine. Offensive MVP prediction. I'm going to go Trey Lance. I think he's going to have a surprising game. By all reports, he's looking like a completely different player. He looks like he's more comfortable. His processing speed looks like it's much faster than Sam Darnold's and much faster than his previous season. I'm going to go with Trey Lance. I can't even imagine what his stats are going to look like because I don't know how long he's going to play, but I think he's going to have at least one score. And I think he's going to look much better than we saw out of him last year in the monsoon in Chicago. Just throwing that out there. Who next? Who wants to go? Mike, you want to go with your offensive MVP prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jordan Mason. I was going to say TDP, but I think he's a little bit ahead of Mason. So usually last year, Mason was the closer. And I really enjoyed watching that. I can absolutely see that happening again. And he showed some wherewithal where, he could have put the game out by scoring again, but he went down early. Like he looks like he has some of that it factor in him. So I'm going to go with Jordan Mason instead of TDP, the closer, to finish it all up.
All right. I'm going to go with my main Michigan man. I think that Jake Moody is going to be 4 for 4 on field goals and get 1 or 2 extra points. He's going to make us go Robbie who and really remind, because listen, let's face it. It's not really much of a competition at this point. I haven't heard shit about Zane Gonzalez. All I've heard is Jake Moody and how he's been killing the game. So I expect more of the same. I expect Jake Moody to really take that up, and let's see what he does in game action. But I think that he really kind of solidifies his position as the 49ers kicker going forward into the future.
I heard that both of the kickers were actually really accurate, but Moody is booming them. So that's the biggest difference right there. If they're both kicking 80, 90%, well, who's going to give you more distance? And so that's going to be it. Do you think they switch them throughout the game? Do you think that they alternate, or do they give one guy one whole game and then the next guy the other whole game?
I think they might give halves. I could see them doing halves. But then again, they could switch. I just think it's really hard to get somebody into a rhythm if you're, taking them in or out. I think it's like, hey, you're going to play the first half. Hey, you're going to play the second half. I think that part of it doesn't really matter to a kicker, right? I'm playing first or second quarter. But if you start alternating kicks, I think that really does kind of mess with the rhythm a little bit, particularly if you're looking at like kickoffs and stuff too, because that's going to be the other thing, right? Who's more likely to get you touchbacks? I think it's going to be Jake Moody. But I'm just going with Jake Moody. My other pick was going to be Ronnie Bell, who I think, is going to have a nice game for preseason game 1. I think in garbage time he can get some catches, but I'm just going to stick with my Michigan guys for game 1 for sure.
Okay, I like that. By the way, Eric Wallace, I'm pissed you guys got Jackson Smith, JSN. I really liked him coming out of college, and that whole wide receiver trio you guys have. He's a Seahawks fan. He said earlier.
I mean,
it's not fair. It's not fair.
They still got Geno Smith throwing him the ball though. I don't believe in Geno Smith. Sorry guys.
Geno Smith is good until he plays the Niners.
Geno Smith was okay until the second half of the season. Go look at the numbers. Yeah. He was terrible in the second half.
And the second half of that playoff game. I rewatched that playoff game the other night. It was like, I think the Seahawks had the lead. I think it was 14-13 going into halftime. And the 49ers.
It was on the easy call, though. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And then the strip sack, fumble, recovery as the Seahawks were driving, that just turned the game absolutely around. I think the Niners scored like 2 or 3 times unanswered. Not to rehash everything. Sorry to bring up a bad memory for you, Eric. I appreciate you tuning in. But all right, defensive MVP. Yeah, I feel like Roberto said it, Jair Brown. The guy, he's been talking, he's been spoken about like he's been really impressive. He's going to have the opportunity to show out and to earn that starting gig. I don't know if he'll earn it right away, but I think we're going to see some things out of the kid, out of the rookie that we're really going to like. And I'm expecting big things from Brown. Mike, who do you got for defensive MVP?
All right. Um, I just want to say I think he's going to be a big liability out there. I have not heard good things about him in coverage. I've
Okay.
heard terrible things about his speed. And you guys know I'm a Jersey guy true and through. You guys know I pump up my Jersey guys, my Pennsylvania guys, but I hope I'm wrong and I hope you're right. I really do. But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Javon Kinlaw. I'm going to go with Javon Kinlaw. I think he's going to get a lot of reps. I think the team wants to see what he can do. This is his first offseason where he can actually take part in the drills. I think that's being missed in all of the he's always injured, right? Even throughout other training camps and all, he couldn't practice. He was on the sidelines to be ready for week 1. But this year they actually got to coach him up. They actually got to teach him about leverage and all, have him running underneath those little nets so that way he's playing lower and all that stuff. And I think those are the small things that are going to benefit him really, really well. I'm going to go with Javon Kinlaw.
Okay. Matt, who do you got?
I'm going to say Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. I think that he's going to play a lot. He's the third linebacker on the depth chart, but he's going to show why, parting with Azeez Al-Shire isn't going to be as painful as we all thought. A lot of people don't give him credit for what he's done over the last couple of years, but he's been solid. Yeah. When he's asked to come in and play, he's been very solid. I think that continues on this year. Solid special teams guy when he's asked to do that as well. I think that he's going to take a step up. He's a guy that seems to rise to the occasion when the situation presents itself. He doesn't look like the moment's too big for him, and I think that continues. And I'd really like to see, with Fred Warner obviously not going to be playing that much, Dre Greenlaw not going to be playing that much, can Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles kind of set the leadership role for that defense, because he's going to be one of the highest tenured 49ers to be out there with significant playing time. A lot of rookies on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to kind of be the quarterback of that defense going forward, with, Eric Armstead probably not going to be playing that much. Drake Jackson obviously out. Nick Bosa obviously not with the team. Javon Hargrave probably not going to play that much. So you get into it. Who is the guy? Who are you looking to for leadership? Talanoa Hufanga, again, as Mike pointed out a couple of weeks ago, Fred Warner, it was the nicest rejection of somebody's leadership skills I've ever seen. But fact of the matter is, I don't think that Fred Warner would say the same thing about Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. And I think that going forward, you look for that in this game, for him to be able to step up in times of need. And this is his year to solidify himself. Everybody talks about the 49ers teams of old, right? Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, who is always overlooked. Ahmad Brooks, who is such a solid third linebacker. And I think that DFF can be that for sure for this team.
Damn. All right. By the way, I see Dorian Thompson-Robinson is showing out again tonight in the second preseason game. 49ers had a ton of visits with this kid. He would have just come in and had a bunch of trouble in his career, because going into a crowded quarterback room as it is. But I'm rooting for the kid. I hope he plays well.
I think if Purdy hadn't have done what he did last year, Dorian Thomas-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA.
Yeah, where'd he go?
Cleveland
to the Browns. I think that if and that's a fit for them with Massage Watson there. That's kind of a fit. But I think that if Brock Purdy hadn't have done what he did last year, and they knew they were going to go back to Trey Lance, DTR would have been like a great backup pick for him, because they're similar style players.
Yeah, for sure. I saw he's trending right now. But again, in one quarter, 9 for 10, 102 passing yards and a touchdown. So shout out to him, UCLA product. All right. Do you want to do final score prediction or? Yeah,
let just for funsies, let's do it. By the way, shout out to Eric Wallace, who is like the most even-tempered Seahawk fan that we know. Like, he comes in here all the time and he's cool. So yeah. I've seen him on Nothing But Niners chats and stuff like that. And every time I've seen him in here, he's been super cool. So I appreciate that.
All right. Final score predictions. I'll go first. I think the 49ers are going to win this one. Apparently, these joint practices have been quite chippy, and the players have been very mouthy with each other. I think they're going to win this one. I don't know, 27-13. And I think maybe it'll be close when they have somewhat starter level players in. And then once it gets to backups, I just think the 49ers backups are better than the Raiders backups. And they'll probably get out of hand there. Mike, what do you got?
I think the defense lets us down. I think the backups of the defense let us down. I don't think it's going to be scoring on an offense. I think we're going to start really, really hot. I'm going to say final score something like 22-27.
Okay, close.
22
All right.
for the Raiders. For the Raiders, obviously.
Okay. I also think that it's going to be an uglier game than we think. I think that it's going to be like 18-16. And I think the 49ers pull it out. I think they get, one touchdown. Maybe Gonzalez comes in and misses an extra point and they go from there. But it is going to be an ugly game. It's so funny how you're just like, okay, and we've seen it time and time and again in the preseason where a team, the starters go and it's like 14-7, right? Whoever, our team is winning, great. And then at the end of the game, you look like 26-23. What the fuck happened? We lost. And it's just like, it's after that, after the first however much, it's a scrub bowl. And it's just like whoever's shitty roster guys are better than the other team's shitty roster guys. Is how that's going to shake out. It's just fun to do. I still think that if somebody guesses the correct score, which we do every year, guys, so put them in the chat. We'll pick somebody to win some type of merch. We've only had one person ever win merch, by the way.
All right, let's get into this chat pack time. I'm going to pick one out of pod decks tonight. And it's going to be random. I'm going to close my eyes. Okay. Okay, well, this is kind of negative, but what is the trait you most deplore in yourself? I can go first if you guys want, if you want to think about some. All right. Most deplored myself. Well, I have a very addictive personality. I've spoken about it here before. I am a recovering opiate addict. So I would probably say if I like something, I'm going to do it until it kills me. So my addictive personality is probably what I deplore the most. If there was a way I could just like something at a very reasonable rate and turn it off when I don't need it and turn it back on when I want it, that would be nice. But I have absolutely no ability to do so. And I will go out all out on something if I like it. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. I am very vindictive and vengeful, right? So I've gotten better. I still hold on to grudges, but I don't act on them anymore. So I'm getting better. But if you ever did me wrong, like, you are dead to me. And it's not a close like, oh, okay, I can be cordial. Like, I used to be really, really bad. Now I can be in the same room with someone who, was talking shit about me or whatever and let it go. I am growing in that scenario, but I still, like, I don't forget. I wish I had the ability, like, once I moved on, I want to, like, forget about it, but I can't. I want to, like, completely, like, it not even pop up in my mind anymore, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't want to, like, if I say I'm over it, I'm over it. I'll give you guys a very specific example. A couple of years ago, I think you guys were all part of Nothing But Niners at the time still. I got into it with his Mr. Roscoe's now on Twitter, that kid Chris. And he said something about my kids and me being an Uncle Tom and all that. And I was literally looking for this kid. I was looking for him. Now, since that's happened, we've been in the same room, we've hung out, no problems. I'm back to following him and all that stuff. But the fact that I still remember it and I still get those same emotions when I think about it, that part is what bothers me. So I can accept it and I can move on, but I hate that I still get bothered by it and question whether or not I should have continued with the way I wanted to act before. So yeah.
Damn. It's a good one.
All right. My biggest thing is, I've had to overcome. Okay, so I dealt with a lot of abandonment issues when I was a kid, whatever, all hard life, whatever, who gives a shit, right? One of the things that I developed early and then overcame, probably to extreme degree was like when I was a kid, I wanted people to like me. So I would tell like stories or whatever to get them to like me. And then once I figured out that didn't work, I went the extreme opposite to where now I just tell the truth all the time. And if I find myself annoyed by something, not only will I be brutally honest, I'll do it in a very kind of almost cruel and tactless way. I will say something so blunt and so like outside of what social norms are that it catches people off guard, that I can be like that kind of mean. I can be mean sometimes, and I don't try to be that way very often, but again, with anger issues and stuff like that, it kind of comes out that way. There'll be times where I say something that I know I know it's true, but in that moment, I know that thing is just going to like turn the screws to whoever I'm like having a disagreement or I'm pissed off with. That's kind of an ugly personality trait that I have for sure.
That's funny. I mean, I get it though. I totally get it. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for this first preview show of the year. Got a little deep at the end. Usually these questions are positive or thought provoking. This one got a little deep, a little negative, making us pick our worst quality about ourselves. But hey, everybody's got to do it every now and then, right?
But I appreciate the honesty, the fact that everybody could like say something about themselves. Most people would be like, "I try too hard and I care too much."
I'm
like,
a perfectionist.
I'm a perfectionist. God, that's the worst one. I'm a perfectionist. No, you're not, dude. The fact that you said you're a perfectionist means that you're not.
Yep.
Just so you guys know, there are some super chats we didn't get to. I don't think we did. If we did, I missed them.
I think we did.
We didn't get to one.
I'll read this one.
So.
I addressed it on the stream, but Great Fox 198. The other day I was at a restaurant. ESPN was on Mina Kimes. I remember that Zach said in the pod he would do her. Jesus, man, what the hell? I don't know if I was that blunt. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Maybe we chose writers we were attracted to, and did I list Mina Kimes? Yes, I'm not denying that. I would hope I was never that blunt to where I was like, I'd bang her. You know, I don't even say that.
Listen, I got an admission to make. If we're talking about people that, because you know everybody says like the Kay Adams and you know the people like that, right? All those people. I gotta throw one out there, and it's like, listen. I don't even care. She's thick, but I like her. It's fucking Rachel Nichols, dude.
Oh,
I'm okay with Rachel Nichols.
Okay.
All right. I remember when she was like way thinner and way younger, and I was about that life. But
you're about to get canceled for that.
I know, bro. But
you only liked her when she was thinner.
No, fuck no. I like her more now. Hey, I know he's out there in the East. Jimmy Butler, back me up on this.
Jimmy Butler.
I've seen her before. I refer to her as the redhead thick lady. I didn't know that's what her name was. I know exactly who you're talking about. Yep. I had to like type the name in to see if that was the same person that I was thinking of when you started talking. And I was like, yeah, that's her. I know who you're talking about. But I mean, what's my girl's name now? Taylor. What's her name?
Rooks.
Taylor Rooks. Taylor Rooks. Wow.
Hold on. All right. If we're going there, hold up.
She is stunning. She is like gorgeously stunning. Like,
oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Now I have to look up Hannah Storm.
Who is Hannah Storm? Is that a porn star?
Hannah Storm.
Is that a porn star?
How Roberto says once. How long ago are we talking? It's definitely a porn star name, but it's not a porn star.
He said she was fine once. What happened? Look, we're showing his pigs. Joy Taylor.
Joy Taylor. Shout outs to Joy Taylor.
She looks so much like Jason.
If Jason,
I'm sorry. That's all I see in the face. All I see is Jason.
It's the forehead and face. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We weren't going to get into this, but Gray Fox super chatted it. I'm sorry. This wasn't something that was on the agenda for tonight's show. So please don't come at us. This was
also, I've heard through the grapevine she's not the nicest person, but Molly Karam is fine as fuck too.
She got kicked off first take, right? For disagreeing with both of them. I'm pretty sure she tried to stand her ground against Skip and Stephen A.
I don't know, but she's a very beautiful lady.
All right, before we get canceled, let's wrap it up here. Thank you everybody for tuning in to the first preview show of the year. I blame Gray Fox 198 for any drama that comes our way from the end of the stream. Hit like, hit subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Mike, let the folks know where to find you. I'm sure they already know, but go ahead.
Listen, guys, when the regular season gets here, there will be no more dual streams. If you are watching this on Nothing But Niners or Twitter right now, make sure you guys are subscribed to the 49ers Hive YouTube page. These shows will continue, but exclusively on their end. So please, 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 if you enjoy this content, if you like this trio, make sure you get on over there because that's where it's going to continue. Once the regular season gets here, it is over for the dual streams.
All right. I love it. And we'll be live Sunday after the game, breaking it all down. Matt,
Absolutely.
You want to go ahead and carry us out? All of our handles are below on the screen. Go follow us on Twitter, by the way.
Absolutely. Football's back, baby. We only got a couple days until the 49ers kick off their 2023 season. It's just preseason game number 1, but we all know the meat and potatoes of the situation. So much action, so much intrigue. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the quarterbacks. Please, guys, just root for the team in general. That's what I know that I do each and every week on this show, which is why I sign off the way that I do. So thank you always for being here, guys. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Zach. You guys are holding it down as always. Sunday night, come back and join us after the game. But until that point, and until next time, go Niners.